Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. It is Monday, August 15th. I am Frank Granito, and joining me in studio today live is my co-host Donald Eng. Don, I am glad to see you survived the heat wave this weekend.
I did. I lit a candle to the memory of Willis Carrier, and here I am, safe and sound again.
We had a lot of great stuff over the weekend, Don. You obviously had all the Olympic action. There was the golf event that was incredible, the gymnastics. It's all been great. We had some local Connecticut Olympians who made it to medal rounds. Then we also had championship weekend for the Cal Ripken World Series down in Florida, and Fairfield American that was in the New England Little League Regional Championships. We'll get to all of that at the C Block. But Don, it is August 15th. It is the start of preseason camps for all the football teams that did not do spring football, and I'm very excited to have our next guest onto the show. It is the founder of the Rudin Report, and that's Dave Rudin. Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Frank. Don, good talking to you guys.
Well, Dave, we're really excited to have you on here, and we were actually hoping to get you on last week, Dave, and that's where we want to start. You broke the news about Staples running back Ethan Berger, who will now miss the entire season this fall because of a leg injury. Let's start right there, Dave. How does this injury affect Staples as a title contender in this conference?
Well, obviously, it's a big blow. You're talking about one of the premier running backs in the league. Staples obviously is a running team, so they really were going to count on Ethan a lot. He played 5 games last year and still gained 582 yards. So you're looking at somebody who's 100 yards back. So I think it's going to change things a little bit. You just can't lose a player like that and not be hurt by it. But I suspect that Morris has a few things up his sleeve to try to compensate.
And Staples is one of the bigger schools in the conference, so while other teams might run into some depth issues, Staples, one of those teams that's got a lot of guys on the roster. Who are some of the players who are going to step up now to fill this role, Dave?
Well, I think you're going to see running back by committee, at least right now. It's opening. They're having their first conditioning practice today, so it's sort of early, and this could change depending on what happens in camp. But I know there are guys like Elliot Pooley, Brandon Adrian, Harris Levi. I think those are a couple of the guys, 3 of the guys that they're going to be looking at to step up and play a role and sort of be running back by committee. And then also you have Andrew Speed, the quarterback, and he's very good running the ball as well. So I think even though you'd like to feed the ball to somebody like Ethan Berger as much as possible, I think you're going to see the carries spread out pretty equally until somebody emerges. And that very well could be possible.
Okay, so, we look forward to seeing Ethan healthy, hopefully, and back on the lacrosse field this spring. But, Dave, speaking of Staples, of course, when you think Staples, the next thought that comes into your head is always Greenwich, year 2 of the Johnny Marinelli era. Were you surprised at the way the team looked so far in some of these off-season and summer programs?
I know they've been doing, following on social media. They apparently have had a great summer on 7-7. I saw them with you at Grip It and Rip It in New Canaan. They looked very sharp. I think you have to take 7-on-7 and keep it in perspective because there's no linemen. And if you don't have a good offensive line, it doesn't matter who you have anywhere else on the offense. So obviously it bodes well for the skill players, but I don't think you can read too much into that. The one thing I will say, I think John Marinelli, I think Johnny's been very, very coy about things. And knowing John for as long as I have, my guess is he thinks he's holding a better hand than everybody else may think.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I think that you get a little bit of turnover when you have a new coach. And Johnny struggled a little bit with that Greenwich senior class last year because it's such a program prided on its tradition, and it was very old-fashioned. I think the new regime of kids has really bought in, especially this incoming senior class, and are on board with Coach Marinelli and love the system that he's bringing, Dave.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, anytime a new coach comes in and his predecessor, Rich Albanese, did an absolutely fantastic job there. Johnny's a different kind of coach. He obviously likes to spread the field, likes to throw the ball a lot, and it takes some time to make such a drastic change in offensive philosophy. And I think obviously it was a disappointing year. They expected to do better than 4-5, but I think there's been a lot of work done in the off season. I think you have some players coming back who are comfortable, and I expect Greenwich to be a much better team and potentially a sleeper, if you can ever call Greenwich a sleeper, in terms of the hunt for state tournament berths. I have to watch myself. I keep saying the title hunt. There is no title anymore.
Right. Now, Dave, you said that obviously Greenwich really thinks that they're holding a pretty good hand so far going into this football season. Can you give us a player on that roster that we really should keep our eyes on this year?
There are a lot of good ones, I guess, just because I watched him a little bit and he stood out to me was Ty Farris, senior receiver. He actually led the team last year in receiving yards and in touchdown receptions. So he's somebody that I would keep an eye on. I think they have a lot of good receivers. I don't know much yet about the offensive line, so I think that's something that obviously has to solidify for the team to be successful. But Ty Farris is somebody not a lot of people usually catch my eye at 7-on-7 just because I'm usually doing a lot of other things. But he was one of the players that obviously caught my attention.
And Ty Farris, we met with him when we did the 7-on-7 tournament in New Canaan. We got to talk to the Greenwich captains. They're all very well spoken. They love what they're doing. Ty Farris, though, really leads the charge in loving the neon green that Johnny Marinelli brings with him. So he can catch your eye in a couple different ways there. And, you know, Dave, all eyes will certainly be on Greenwich come October 21st when Johnny makes his return to Dunning Stadium and they play New Canaan. New Canaan has had a pretty good offseason, but they've been a little under the radar behind Greenwich and Darien. Now we have to deal with the fact, camp's starting today, who is going to replace Michael Collins? He's won 3 state championships for you. How do you replace that void? In your opinion, Dave, who do you think we see under center in week 1 against Trinity?
You know what? I have no idea, and I don't know if, and you know him as well as I do, I don't know if Coach Lou Marinelli really knows at this point. If it's going to be Cravato, the senior, he's bided his time. Is he going to be able to come in, step in? Do you give him the job first? Or obviously you've got Drew Pine, the very, very, very highly touted freshman who throws the ball very well, but he has no experience. I would guess that knowing the way Lou does things, he's going to give the senior every opportunity to win or lose the job, however you want to look at it. And I really think, I think Drew Pine definitely has a legitimate shot to start that opening game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does come out for that first series. But I think a lot of it will be determined on what happens over these next 3 weeks and how they look in camp, how they look with linemen, how they look at scrimmages. So I think that right now is a question mark, and I think it's probably a question mark in Lou's mind as well.
Well, hopefully they'll have that position figured out within the next 100 days because that is the countdown to when arch rival Darien will come across the Merritt Parkway for the annual Turkey Bowl. For so long, Dave, it felt as though Darien was the little brother that couldn't quite figure out New Canaan. But in the last 5 years, we've seen a complete role reversal on that. Somehow the unanimous #1 team in the state has quietly gone about their business this summer. What can you tell us about what you've seen from Darien, who's won several different competitions, both lineman and skill-wise this summer?
I think Darien, obviously, it's sort of like you say, Darien's Darien, New Canaan's New Canaan. You just have certain programs, especially because of their youth feeder programs, that are always going to be good. And Darien and New Canaan are 2 examples of that. Darien's coming off just an absolute dream season. I think it's fair to say one of the best FCIAC teams ever. They had no weaknesses. They dominated people. And it's a little bit of a question mark in that we just don't know a lot of the names right now. Obviously, they're going to be very, very strong on the offensive and defensive lines. They got a lot of good players back, and it's easy to build when you have linemen like that. A lot of times when we say there's question marks, it's only because a lot of the new starters are replacing people we're very, very familiar with. And it was such a senior-laden team at Darien last year. Not a lot of non-seniors got key playing time. So I think that's one reason why there's a question mark, is we're just not really familiar with the players. But that doesn't mean Darien's they may not be as great a team as they were last year, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be any less of a contender.
Dave, we had Andrew Stoiber out of Darien, 6'6" tackle committed to Michigan. Also, just found out Norwalk's Jake Maxson has committed to Temple. Looks like we're starting to see some D1 caliber linemen coming out of Fairfield County. Has something changed, something in the water? This didn't seem to be the case a couple of years ago.
It's hard to say. Sometimes these are cyclical things. I don't know what's really changed of late in terms of football around here, in terms of something you could pinpoint, a rule change, something that's done differently at the Youth Football League. I think you've seen it in other sports as well. Sometimes it's just a cyclical thing. We went through this, and it's not a sport I cover a lot, but 2 or 3 years ago in track, you just had a whole bunch of outstanding track athletes in the FCX, and a lot of them went to major D1 schools. And I think that's basically what we're looking at in football right now. We just have a really, really good cycle of a lot of good, dominant players that are playing D1 ball. And I guess we're probably going to take another year or two to see whether this is just a golden period for football right now, or does this continue and that we have to start looking into why.
It's a really good point, and it's great to see the state trending up this way, and hopefully we'll stay in this direction. Dave, we're going to take a quick break here on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, we'll ask you about some of the fall's biggest games that you think we should be on the lookout for, and who you think has a chance at finishing with the best record in the FCAC. That'll all be next here on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook. For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities. With locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford, Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000.
Hi, this is Leo Carl from Carl Chevrolet in New Canaan, and you've heard me talk about the Chevy Volt for years. The new model gets 53 miles on EV charge daily, plus 420-mile full range. But don't take my word for it. You need to come in and test drive the Volt yourself. Visit us at 261 Elm Street in New Canaan or online at carldirect.com.
A Better View Window Cleaning Plus has been cleaning glass all over Connecticut for over 20 years. They also specialize in cleaning chandeliers, mirrors, skylights, tiles, and will power wash anything that needs cleaning. They hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and are fully insured and bonded. When you deal with a Better View, you're dealing with the best, not the rest. Call today for a free estimate, 203-284-8836, or visit them online, abetterviewcleaning.com.
Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break.
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. Frank Granito and Donald Eng live in studio today, and we are joined by Dave Rudin of the Rudin Report. Dave, we talked about some of the individual storylines from this offseason. Now looking ahead to the fall, I want to ask you, which are the teams that you think have the best chance to finish at the top of the conference?
Right now, early on, and again, it's if you ask me this question in a couple of weeks, I may have a different answer. But right now, obviously, you go Darien and New Canaan in there. I mean, you would be foolish not to. They have a lot of returning talent. They're always going to be good. I don't think anybody expects either team to be on the level they were last year, but that doesn't mean They're not going to be competitive for best record in the FCIAC and state tournament berths. But I think you could be looking at a lot of parity this year. There's a lot of teams that are interesting that fly underneath the radar. And you've got two of them. You guys have an absolutely great game for open your season with, and that's Trumbull at Ridgefield. I think those are two teams that you really want to keep an eye on. Ridgefield has a very, very strong senior class. A lot of people consider them the best team not to qualify for the state playoffs last year. I know I actually talked about a week ago with Kevin Callahan, the coach, and he's really excited about the talent he has to work with. And then you have Trumbull, too, that has had a little bit of an off year last year, but Trumbull, too, has a lot of returning players, a lot of good people in skill position, Marquise Woods. I think those are two teams you really, really want to keep an eye on, and I think that's going to be a good measuring stick game in terms of where do those teams stand. Somebody obviously is going to have to do some catching up after losing the game. So those are two teams right off the bat. Staples, even though they lost Ethan Berger, Staples is very much in the mix. I actually saw Mars about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and Mars usually plays it very, very close to the vest. And I asked him about the team, and he sort of smiled in a confident, not cocky way. And they've got a lot of talent back, and I think they're going to be a team that could be very much in the mix. So that's 5 teams right there, and that's not even looking into a couple of possible sleepers that I think you need to keep an eye on, and that I'm looking forward to seeing in training camp.
Well, Dave, you talked about how that week 1 matchup, you got Trumbull and Ridgefield, and one of those teams is going to have to bounce back after having an early loss. For so many years now, or at least the past 3 or 4, we've seen it been only Darien and New Canaan who have really dominated and run away with the conference. Do you think that'll be the case this year, where by week 7 or week 8, it's Darien, New Canaan, and everyone else? Or is this a more balanced FCIAC, and we're going to see 5, 6 teams in the hunt until Thanksgiving weekend?
Kind of early to say right now. I think this is the first time I've gone into a season in a while where I don't feel like we're necessarily going to be watching the Darien, New Canaan speeding trains getting ready to collide on Thanksgiving. That may end up being the case. But right now, I think we could have a multi-team race right now. I'm not ready to discount Greenwich by any means. I put a lot of stock into the talent they have, and I put a lot of stock in John Marinelli being able to get a lot out of his players. So that's another team that's going to be in the mix. And another team that another of your first week games, I believe, Trinity and New Canaan. And Trinity is another team that I think has some pretty good talent. And I'm guessing right now they may be a notch below, but a lot of what I'm doing right now is guesswork. And if you want me to give you a sleeper team right now, just opening day, and again, all this is going to change. Asked me 3 weeks ago. Hopefully I'll sound a little smarter. But Norwalk's a team that kind of interests me as well.
Well, it's interesting, Dave. A lot of the teams that we're talking about are teams from the West Division. Do you think that it's more likely that Darien is able to run the table coming out of the East with a hurting Staples team right now, and maybe St. Joe's is their next best competition, versus New Canaan, Trumbull, Greenwich, Ridgefield, Trinity Catholic, who have all got to play against each other and go through that gauntlet?
Yeah, I think it'd be hard not to say Darien or Staples right now. St. Joseph, another team maybe to keep an eye on as well. They have Corey Babineau back at quarterback, and I think they have some returning talent. Not a lot that I know about the Cadets quite yet, but you would have to say right now, if you were going to do opening day of conditioning predictions, Darien and Staples in the hunt. And then, like you said, Greenwich, New Canaan, Ridgefield, Trumbull. And the one thing we talked about, how the loser of that Trumbull-Ridgefield game is at a disadvantage. If Ridgefield should lose to Trumbull at home, week 2, they're going to your alma mater, Frank, New Canaan. So you could have a very, very good Ridgefield team conceivably looking at an 0-2 start.
Right, and that, of course, obviously, it would get the season up to a terrible start. As you mentioned earlier, I was one of those people that thought that given a 10th game, Ridgefield probably makes that Class AA playoffs, and if they do, who knows what would have happened. Why don't you give us one more game here that's kind of off the radar that you've got circled on the calendar? What are you really looking forward to? Where are you really looking forward to being in this first couple of weeks of the season?
Boy, there are a lot of good games early on. First week, again, Ridgefield, Trumbull. I'm looking over second week of the season. Don't know a lot about Danbury. That's one of the teams that's not been mentioned. I don't know what to expect from them, and they have Staples in week 2, so that's a team that interests me. Ludlow and Ward, the two Fairfield teams. I think Fairfield Ward could actually be a pretty decent team as well. They have some good players coming back also, and I'm a huge fan of Duncan Della Volpe. I think he's one of the best coaches in the FCEC who doesn't get a lot of attention. So Ward Wilton is another game on opening week. I don't know what to expect right now out of either team, but that could be a telling game whether one of those two teams are going to be sleepers or not. McMahon's another team that traditionally has been pretty good. Haven't heard much out of the McMahon camp at all. So, we could be looking at a league where we have a lot of good teams, a lot of middle-of-the-road teams, and I don't know that we're going to have a lot of teams where the coach is going to go to bed Thursday night pretty confident of victory Friday night or Saturday.
Dave, I couldn't agree more. I really do think it's a league that is anyone can beat anyone on any given week. It should be a very exciting season. I want to thank you for coming on the show, Dave. We look forward to talking with you again throughout the season. We do want to ask you, though, who's going to win the conference right now? No pressure. Go ahead.
Right now, I'll say Darien only because defending FCEC champion and very, very strong offense and defensive line. Subject to being able to change my mind tomorrow or Wednesday.
We will allow you to change your mind until September 9th when we see the season kick off. Again, we'll be down at Tiger Hollow when Trumbull takes on Ridgefield. Dave, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on, Frank Donald. It's a pleasure.
So we will take another break here on Nutmeg Sports, but when we get back, we'll look at the Fairfield American and Norwalk All-Star runs at the Little League Regionals and the Cal Ripken World Series right after this.
Warm weather, light breezes, boats are in the water. There's no better place to celebrate summer than the Dock Shop. Whether in Darien at 51 Tokenique Road or Westport at 609 Riverside Avenue, the Dock Shop is where you'll find everything you need to kick off summer. From the latest summer apparel to the newest fishing tackle, the Dock Shop will help you get the most out of your next beach day or harbor cruise. At the Dock Shop, you'll find a wonderful selection of items made in the USA and right here in New England, all with a distinct nautical flair. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the coastal lifestyle, this is a unique place to shop. DockShop.com.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. New Canaan is 6 minutes down the road. New Canaan's a beautiful little town to walk around. I work in Westport. My commute is 20 minutes. It's close to Westchester where my family is, so the location is ideal. There is no other townhome that compares in the area. This is where I want to be.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor, I'm a high school football coach, I'm a television presenter, and I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN Network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
You're watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. More than 1.5 million viewers have watched our live sports, news, and entertainment broadcasting since the network launched in August 2015. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
We welcome you back to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. We want to thank our guest, Dave Rudin, again for taking time and joining us today, and we look forward to having him throughout the fall season. Don, let's shift gears now. We had both Fairfield American and the Norwalk All-Stars in championship games over the weekend. And let's start down in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, with the Norwalk 10-year-old All-Stars in the championship of the Cal Ripken World Series. And after defeating Poughkeepsie in the semifinal on Thursday, Norwalk was matched up against undefeated Glen Allen, Virginia, Friday afternoon for all the marbles. 10-year-olds came up just short, falling at the hands of Glen Allen by a score of 4-3 in what was a back-and-forth game that saw 3 lead changes and 3 ties before Glen Allen took a 4-2 lead after the 4th inning. Norwalk cut the lead to 1 in the 5th, but that was as close as they would get. The game ended with a little bit of controversy, Don, as there was a missed call on the final out, which prevented Norwalk's tying run from scoring. With Norwalk down to its last strike, Keegan Cullen hit a bounding ball to second base, which was fielded and thrown high to the bag. It appeared by the naked eye and then later confirmed by video replay from a company broadcasting the game that pinch runner Devin Bone had beaten the throw in there. But because there's no replay in the Cal Ripken World Series, the umpires gather together. They stick with the call. Game is over, along with Norwalk's season. They finished the year at 25-4, and as the national runner-up, it's a gut-wrenching and just absolutely heartbreaking way to have your 10-year-old season ended. And I don't know how Coach Langle is able to explain it to those kids, but what they did this summer was absolutely incredible for Connecticut baseball.
It really was, and really for the last couple of years, we've seen some great baseball coming out of Norwalk. Really, Norwalk is almost becoming like youth baseball, almost of New England, with some of the success those teams have had. As you said, just a great season, heartbreaking way to lose, but really, when isn't it heartbreaking when you lose a national championship game? Just a great job by the kids, and it was really a lot of fun to follow them.
It was, and we've had a blast covering these kids. We've been doing it now since they won their district tournament almost a month and a half ago. They come back and beat a Poughkeepsie. They made it to the semifinals. They had to play Poughkeepsie, who beat them 14-3 in the opening game. We were sitting here thinking their season was done.
Right. We were saying there's no way they come back and beat a Poughkeepsie team that has just trounced them like that. And
Poughkeepsie was rolling to the tournament. They come back, put up such a great performance. Glen Allen does deserve to be the national champion. You can't take anything away from them, but it was just so much fun to follow this Norwalk team. We want to offer them all the congratulations in the world, and we cannot wait to see what they do in the next few coming summers and when they get to the high school level. And we'll shift gears now. We'll head up to Bristol, and Fairfield American was playing in a championship game as well, Don.
Right, on Saturday, the championship game of the Little League New England Regional Tournament. Fairfield American came up just short of going to the Little League World Series, losing to Rhode Island 5-1. In its previous 2 games, Fairfield American had banged out 33 hits and scored 28 runs. But against Warwick North pitcher Colin Lemieux, who homered, doubled, and drove in 3 runs, they just couldn't get anything going with the bats against him. Fairfield American got 8 hits, but they did run themselves out of potential scoring situations by being over-aggressive on the base paths. So again, Fairfield American coming up 1 game short of going to the Little League World Series, but especially at Little League, you get a pitcher like that, you get that kind of superior athlete on the field, with that kind of size, that kind of pitching, and that kind of hitting, nothing you can do.
Fairfield was winning 1-0 going into the top of the 4th, or at the end of the top of the 4th. And I'm sitting there watching this game thinking, I cannot wait to go in and rub it in Don's face. Like I told you they were going to come back. Colin Lemieux got up, and this young man, he is quite the ball player. He's 6'1", about 165 pounds. He's bigger than me. He hit a ball up there in Bristol that still hasn't landed. It's teetering on crossing the border into Nova Scotia. It was an absolute bomb. But then he comes back, and the pitching performance he had, it's 3-1 in the top of the 5th, and now he doubles and breaks it open to 5-1. This is the 3rd consecutive year a Rhode Island team has won the regionals. They are a very good team. Rhode Island baseball is on the rise, and they continue to compete nationally, but a lot of credit again to a Fairfield team that came into regionals undefeated. It lost 2 games all summer, and it was in this tournament.
I sort of hit a brick wall there mentally with the to the border of Nova Scotia.
Crossing the border to Nova Scotia.
That was a bomb. And yeah, I mean Rhode Island. it's funny, for a small state, you don't really expect dominant baseball programs to come out of there, but they've really come a long way. And it's been Connecticut, Rhode Island for the last few years. You almost kind of wonder, like what's happened to Massachusetts baseball. But yeah, it's been Connecticut, it's been Rhode Island, and it's just, just can't quite get over that that Rhode Island bump there to get to the Little League World Series. And
Connecticut did have to beat Massachusetts on Friday afternoon in the semifinals. They won that game 10-0. They had just beaten Bedford by a score of 13-0, who had beaten them at the beginning of the tournament.
You were pretty confident in that pick.
Well, and it was another team that we talked about. Okay, you lost to this Bedford team. How do you bounce back now from being forced to a do or die situation? And it was their backs against the wall. They played their best baseball. You run out of gas, and you get to that point, and it was just a Rhode Island team that deserved to win the tournament. They did everything right, and we wish them the best of luck now as they go on to pursue a Little League World Series title.
Right. You've come up with your best effort. When your backs are against the wall, you can only do that so many times. You're just kind of playing with danger, and eventually you run into the hot pitcher, and that ends your season.
And it's very unfortunate that we will not have the pleasure of covering these two teams anymore. It was an absolute blast, and I look forward every morning to waking up and seeing who they had played or who they had beaten. So congratulations to both those guys again, and we wish them the best of luck moving forward. Don, any final words?
No, just that it's just one of those things. It's almost like when pitchers and catchers report in baseball. That first day of football conditioning, everyone's undefeated. Hope springs eternal. It's just one of the more enjoyable days when you're into local sports.
It is very exciting. If you didn't have spring football, the camp starts today. Everyone else will kick it off on Friday. 100 days until Thanksgiving. Which Turkey Bowl are we going to be at for the FCX Championship? That'll do it for this episode of Nutmeg Sports. We'll be back here at the same time tomorrow. Check out Coffee Break at 11 with Kate Shaplensky. And good luck to Ashley Schaefer, BMW tonight, looking to win the New York City Softball Championship. Former Rookie of the Year Mike DiRocco is on the mound. First pitch set for 6:15. We'll see you tomorrow.